Hello, it's Hannah from Knit Nottingham. We've been doing a lot of short form videos recently about how garments should fit, how you like your garments to fit, tension squares and all that jazz. So I thought we'd go a little bit more in depth and we do a little video series of me knitting a pattern from start to finish and how I prepare for knitting a pattern and all the considerations that you need to do. So let's jump in. This first episode we're going to be looking at the pattern itself, reading through the pattern, doing a tension square, what yarn we're using, what needles we're using, and then figuring out which size is best to do, and then I'll cast on and start doing the rib. So if you would like to come closer, this is the pattern that I've chosen. It's King Cole pattern and it's in their new Jamboree yarn. So I'm going to do this jumper. I already know from looking at this that I don't want it to be this long. So that's something that I'll look at in a different episode. But first off, we need to decide what yarn we're going to use. So I've got 3 different options here. I've already decided that I'm going to use the Jamboree because I really like this colour. This is in Samba Spectacle. And some different options. Hayfield Spirit DK, this is in the colour 432, really cool colour changing. And then there's also Price Wise by King Cole, which is just an acrylic double knit. And the reason I've chosen these to show you is because they've all got different meterage. So if you've seen any of the previous videos where we talk about meterage, you'll know that if you choose a different 100-gram ball, all of these are 100 grams, but they've all got different meterage because they all weigh, the yarns all weigh different. Does that make sense, Dan? Yeah. So Jamboree has got 300 meters per ball. For the size that I'm going to do, it says I'm going to need 6 balls, but the Hayfield Spirit, if I was to use this instead, this has got 345 meters per ball, so I wouldn't necessarily need 6 balls of this. I possibly would need 5. So if you were going to do this for yourself, if you see that you need 6 100-gram balls, you potentially could go to a yarn shop and buy too much yarn and then you'd have some left over. On the opposite side of that, we've got the King Cole Price Wise here, and this has only got 282 meters per ball, so you may need the 7th ball. Just something for you to think about. But we're going in with the Jamboree. The first thing that I'm going to do is, as boring as it sounds, I'm going to read through the pattern. I've already done this because I'm super organised. I've read through the pattern and I've also picked which size I'm going to do, and I've highlighted all of the instructions for my size. So the way that I picked the size that I wanted to do was I was thinking about how I like my clothes to fit. If I was going to go to fit bust measurement, so my bust measurement is, I mean, is this strange to say on the internet what your bust measurement is?
I don't know. It'll be below.
No, my bust measurement is about 48 inches.
Do we get to see you measure it, or is that a different video?
That's on my OnlyFans, OnlyGrams. And if I was to knit this jumper to fit bust 48 to 50 inches, then the actual finish measurement would be 54 inches. I know that I don't want that amount of ease, so I'm going to go down a size and I'm going to knit to fit bust 44 to 46, and then the actual measurement will be 50.5 inches, which is going to give me about 2.5 inches of positive ease, which for how I like my clothes to fit, that's perfect. So I'm going to go down and do that size. Now also, some patterns, I've not got an example here, but some patterns will draw like a little diagram of the finished garment. Let me grab one, hold that thought. Okay, so I've grabbed another pattern. So this is what I mean here. We've got a little schematic here, so it shows you how the sleeve's going to look like, the shape of it, and then it's got all the measurements here, and then also how the body of the jumper is knit up. Actually, this is quite a good example because it's a very similar shape. Well done me for grabbing that quickly. But King Cole don't do that on their patterns. I'm not sure why, perhaps I should ask them. But we do still have those finished measurements, we've just not got like a visual diagram, which I find the visual diagrams quite helpful. I know that other people do as well. So it says here that the full length of the sweater is 27.25 inches. Again, I know that I don't want to knit it to that length because that's going to hit on my hips, and this is probably a bad example of the jumper that I'm wearing at the moment. I like my jumpers to hit on my waist because I tuck them into skirts or trousers. So I already know that I'm not going to knit it this long. So going back to how many balls you're going to need, I'm not going to need 6 balls, I may need 5 balls, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So we'll talk about the length a little bit more in another video, because I'll have to adjust it while I'm knitting and do some maths and stuff. But the first thing that I've done then, so I've read through the pattern, I've highlighted all of the bits for my size that I want to do, and then I'm going to do a tension square. So tension squares, something that is always talked about. You should do tension squares. Do people actually ever do them? You tell me. I do them because I'm a good girl. And I nerd, yeah, because I'm a nerd. Okay, so the tension for this pattern, it says that it's 23 stitches and 28 rows to 10 centimeters or 4 inches. So let's talk about that. It also says, actually, it says over pattern, so it's not just a stockinette tension square. Some patterns will just say 23 stitches, 28 rows to 10 centimeters over stocking stitch. This one is actually following the pattern, so I'll show you the tension square because I've already done it and prepared. I've done the pattern that is on the jumper for the tension square, but this is more than 23 stitches and 28 rows, because I don't want to just do the exact amount of stitches that they're saying, because I want the fabric to be relaxed and I want to be able to measure it properly. So actually I did 36 stitches. There's lots of maths involved in knitting, and I don't think people understand how much maths is involved. So how I arrived at 36 stitches is because it's telling me to do it in pattern. Would you like to come here, cameraman? I had a look at how many stitches were in one pattern repeat for my size. So here, the pattern repeat is knit 1, purl 7, so that's 8 stitches there. But then either side of the pattern repeat on the row, I've got 1 stitch here, I've got 2 stitches here, and I've got another stitch here and here. So I've actually got 4 or 5 stitches extra. So I've done 36 stitches because I've done 8 times however many that fits into 32. 8 times 4?
I hated maths.
8 times 4 plus the 4 extra stitches. That's how I've arrived at 36. And then for rows, it says to do 28 rows. Now each pattern repeat here is 14 rows long. So I did 2 rows before I started the pattern repeat, did 28 rows, so this pattern repeat twice, and then I did 2 extra rows and then cast off. So it's bigger than the 23 stitches and 28 rows. It's 36 stitches and it's about 34, 35 rows. Then I've blocked it and I've measured it. So that took well, it didn't take me long to do the swatch. It took me about half an hour, 45 minutes to do the swatch. Blocked it in the sunshine, so it took me half a day to figure this out. So I just think that it is beneficial to take the time to do the swatch, because in the end you want to have a garment that's going to fit you.
So why would you block it?
I block it because wetting the yarn and pinning it out to the right size is going to relax the stitches and just make it a lot more, what's the word? You're getting a much better idea of how the finished product is going to be.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So I've measured it, I've measured my stitches, I've got 23 stitches for my tension sideways, my horizontal tension, I don't think that's what it's called, I just made that up. 28 rows to 10 centimeters. I'm not too bothered about that because I'm going to change the length of it anyway. It's more the number of stitches per 10 centimeters or 4 inch this way that you've got than lengthways. Okay, so we've done tension. The needles that it said to use was 4mm needles, which is the main body needles. So usually when you've got a pattern, you'll have a smaller size needle for the rib and then a larger size needle for the body of the thing that you're making. So it's asking for 3.25mm and a 4mm needle. It doesn't specify whether you need straight needles or circular needles. It is knit back and forth, so you can assume that it is straight needles. So you could use a set of straight needles. You could also use circular needles and knit back and forth on the circular needles. My preference is to use circular needles and knit back and forth, just because I find it a lot easier to shove in my bag. It's a lot more comfortable when you've got a lot of weight on something to have them on a circular needle rather than having to hold it all straight, if that makes sense.
And if you was doing circulars, what cable length would you go for?
I've just picked up 80 centimeters because I'm doing the back and the front separately, so I don't need enough length to have all of my stitches, like 300 and whatever stitches all the way around. I think I've got 177 stitches. Yeah, 177 stitches. So 80 centimeters is a pretty good body size. Obviously, if you had a smaller body or a larger body than me, then you could use different. But because we're knitting back and forth, the cable length isn't necessarily that important, because as long as you're not using like a 25 centimeter cable with 177 stitches on, like, common sense really, isn't it? So I've got my own set. I've got interchangeable, so I've got an 80 centimeter cable on here, and I've set it up with 3.25 millimeter needles ready to cast on my rib. But I think that's all the preparation that we need to do for before we actually cast on the actual jumper. So thank you for watching the first episode of this little mini series that we're doing. I'm going to get cast on and start the rib, and then in the next episode we can talk about all of that stuff and how I'm changing the pattern, not following the directions because I'm a rebel. So is there anything that I've forgotten? Let me know below if there's something that you do that I haven't done. And also, if you have any questions, then you can send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, carrier pigeon, however you send messages these days. So happy knitting, happy crafting, happy crocheting, whatever. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.